The thick fog clung to the windshield like a ghost reluctant to let go. Daniel Blackwood's rental car crept into the crumbling parking lot of the Starlight Inn, its headlights slicing through the mist like a scalpel. Overhead, a weary neon sign buzzed in the dark, the S flickering in and out like a silent scream, half a name, half a warning. Daniel turned off the engine and sat in silence, staring at what was once his pride and joy. 8 years ago, this place had symbolized hope, the first jewel in what would become a hospitality empire. Now it felt like a relic, tired, forgotten, and begging to be seen. He was no longer the eager entrepreneur who had painted the first walls himself. Now he was the COO of Blackwood Accommodations, managing 27 properties across 3 states from glass-walled offices. But with growth came distance, and that was his first real mistake. The quarterly reports from this location had been disastrous for months. Complaints, plummeting reviews, and inexplicable losses had piled up. Spreadsheets didn't lie, but they also didn't tell the whole truth. He needed to feel the air inside this place again. He needed to look into the eyes of the people running it. Grabbing his overnight bag, Daniel whispered under his breath, "Time to see what I've been missing." Tonight, he wasn't Daniel Blackwood, executive and mogul. Tonight, he was Dan Black, just a traveler looking for a bed. The motel's front entrance groaned open reluctantly, like it resented visitors. Inside, the lobby bore the scars of neglect. The once shiny tile floor was dulled and chipped, barely reflecting the dim light above. A water stain bloomed on the ceiling like a spreading bruise. The refreshment station, once a symbol of welcome, now stood desolate. 3 lonely stale cookies in a chipped bowl, and coffee cups that hadn't been touched in days. Behind the desk stood a young woman, her posture straightening instinctively at the sound of footsteps. Her name tag read Lena. Her uniform was wrinkled, her eyes ringed with fatigue that no amount of concealer could hide. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile people learn in survival mode. Polite, practiced, and devoid of light. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Starlight Inn," she said, her voice edged with exhaustion but still steady. "Do you have a reservation?" "Yes," Daniel replied, under Dan Black. He watched her closely, the way her fingers trembled slightly as they moved across the keyboard. Her nails were bitten down to the quick. When she reached for his ID, a faint bruise peeked out from beneath her sleeve, like a secret she hadn't had the energy to hide. "Long shift?" he asked gently, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. "Yeah, double shift today actually. We're short-staffed." "Seems like a lot of places are," Daniel said, his tone laced with genuine sympathy. "It's been tough," she admitted, her facade cracking just for a moment before she recomposed herself. She handed him the key card. "Room 118, down the hall to the right, checkouts at 11, breakfast from 6 to 9. Their hands touched, briefly, and he was startled by how cold her fingers were, despite the stuffy warmth of the lobby. "Thanks, Lena," he said, meaning it. "I hope things ease up for you soon." Her expression flickered, surprise, maybe gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Black. Have a good night." Daniel turned down the hallway, but something gnawed at him, an instinct, or maybe guilt. He slowed his steps, pretended to check his phone, then paused just out of sight from the front desk. Silence stretched. Then a sound cracked through the stillness, a muffled sob, then another, quickly stifled. He could hear her trying to catch her breath. He froze. The front desk phone rang, shattering the fragile quiet. Lena answered, her voice suddenly composed. "Starlight Inn, this is Lena speaking. How may I help you?" Then a shift, a tremble beneath the surface. "Yes, sir, I understand," she said, her tone sinking into something smaller, more vulnerable. "But like I told you yesterday, I won't have the full amount until Friday when I get paid." A longer pause. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Please, just 2 more days. I've never missed before." Her voice cracked under the weight of desperation. From the phone, a man's voice rose, angry, muffled, threatening. Daniel couldn't make out the words, but he felt their heat. "No, don't," she said, fear blooming in her voice. "I'm alone here tonight. Please don't come to my workplace." The hallway's air felt colder now, as though the walls themselves were recoiling. Daniel's hand clenched around his phone. "I understand," Lena whispered finally, her voice barely audible. "I'll find a way to get it to you tomorrow." The line went dead, and in that silence Daniel Blackwood knew this was no longer about management reports. It was about people, about pain hidden behind forced smiles, about the cost of distance, and something inside him began to shift. The silence that returned after Lena hung up the phone wasn't just quiet. It was oppressive, pressing down on Daniel like a heavy blanket. He stood motionless in the dim hallway, paralyzed by what he'd just heard. His employee was being threatened, here, in his motel, under his name. That realization struck him harder than he expected. It wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal, and it had been happening in his own house while he looked the other way. A soft thud, the sound of a door closing in the back office, snapped him out of his daze. Instinctively, he resumed walking toward room 118, each step echoing louder than the last. His thoughts were a whirlwind. Who was this man threatening Lena? What did he want? Was she the only one? Or had something darker taken root in his organization? Something that spreadsheets and bottom lines would never expose. He swiped his keycard. The lock blinked red, then green. As the door clicked open, the room greeted him with a dreary honesty that the website photos never dared to show. The carpet was threadbare and a trail from bed to bathroom, like a memory worn down by too many footsteps. The television was a relic from another decade, its buttons faded from use. The bed was made, but the once vibrant bedspread had faded into tired shades of beige. But it wasn't the dated furniture or the sagging mattress that gnawed at him. It was Lena's voice, choked with tears, laced with fear. He had come here chasing numbers, trying to fix a failing location, but what he found instead was something far more human and far more broken. Somewhere between a spreadsheet and a smile, people had started slipping through the cracks. He sat on the bed, but sleep never came. He stared at the ceiling as guilt and worry turned over in his mind. At 1:00 a.m. he gave up. Pulling on his clothes, he left the room, driven by a gnawing urgency. He needed clarity. He needed coffee. He needed to understand how things had gone so wrong. The hall was still. The low hum of vending machines was the only sign of life. As he neared the lobby, he slowed. Lena was still at the front desk, thumbing through a worn paperback. Even from several feet away, he could see the puffiness around her eyes. She looked like someone who had mastered the art of crying in silence. He cleared his throat softly. She jumped slightly, hiding the book. "Oh, Mr. Black, is everything all right with your room?" "It's fine," he said gently. "Just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get some coffee, if that's possible." Relief washed over her face. "Of course. The lobby station closed at 10, but I made a fresh pot in the break room. I'll get you a cup." "Thanks," he said, watching her retreat behind the staff door. As he waited, something on the desk caught his eye. A framed photo. Lena smiling beside an older woman in a sunlit garden. The resemblance was clear. Mother and daughter, probably. There was so much life in that picture, so much hope. Lena returned with a steaming mug. "It's not fancy, but it's hot. That's all I need," he smiled, accepting the cup. "Quiet night." "It usually is midweek," she said, then hesitated. "Actually, I prefer the quiet. Gives me time to study." "You're in school?" "Community college." Nursing program? A brief flash of pride lit her features. Or, had to take the semester off. Daniel nodded toward the photo. Your mom? Lena's face softened. Yeah. That was last spring, before she got sick. She paused, the words heavy on her tongue. Before what? Daniel prompted gently. She glanced down, then sighed. Lupus. It flared up bad last summer. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Insurance only covered part of it. Daniel felt a familiar sting in his chest. Medical debt. It was a silent thief in this country. Medical bills can be crushing, he murmured, taking a sip. I'm really sorry. Before she could respond, the front doors slid open. A man in a leather jacket stepped inside, his boots thudding with confidence, or maybe entitlement. Daniel immediately felt the shift in the air. Lena's shoulders tense, and her face went pale. Tony, she whispered, dread curdling her voice. The man sauntered up to the desk, ignoring Daniel entirely. Graveyard shift again, huh? Working all the hours you can find? I told you I'd have the money by Friday, she said quickly, quietly. Tony leaned in too close, his voice casual but sharp. Plans changed. Marcus says you've been talking too much. Daniel's ears perked at the name. Marcus? The day manager? I haven't said anything, Lena pleaded. Too bad, Tony sneered. Maybe we'll visit your mom instead. Daniel's blood ran cold. His grip tightened on the mug. The threat was unmistakable. Is there a problem here? He asked, stepping forward. Tony finally acknowledged him, straightening. No problem. Just collecting a debt. At 1 a.m? Daniel's voice was calm, but his eyes burned. You'd be surprised when people are available in my line of work. Daniel didn't flinch. Maybe we should call the police. Let them decide if this is appropriate. Tony's smile evaporated. I wouldn't do that if I were you, friend. Things tend to get worse when cops get involved. Lena's eyes widened in fear. Please, she begged. Just go. I'll figure it out. Tony stared at her for a long moment, then turned to Daniel. Mind giving us some privacy? Actually, I do mind, Danielle replied, setting the mug down. You need to leave. Whatever business you have can wait until morning, and someplace else. A long, tense pause. Finally, Tony shrugged. Have it your way. He turned to Lena, voice colder now. Tomorrow night. No more extensions. His gaze lingered on the photo of her mother. You know what happens if you disappoint me again? And with that, he left. Lena collapsed into her chair, trembling. Thank you, but you shouldn't have done that. You don't know what they're capable of. Daniel leaned in. Who's they? She hesitated, checking that Tony was really gone. Tony's just the collector, she whispered. He works for Victor Crane. They call it alternative financing for people with bad credit. Loan sharks, Daniel said, his voice tight. She nodded, eyes wet. The interest compounds weekly. I've paid back double what I borrowed. But the balance never goes down. They charge a service fee every time they show up. Daniel's jaw clenched. How did you get connected to them? Lena looked away. Marcus, our day manager. He heard about my mom's bills. Said they helped him out too. I think he gets a cut. He tells them when I'm alone. And suddenly it all fit. Not just a struggling business, not just a girl in trouble. This was a cancer growing inside his company. A system built on fear, feeding off desperation. And Lena, she was just the one who got caught in the open. When Daniel asked how many other employees were caught in the same trap, the glance Gloria shot him was sharp and telling. Silent, but enough. Enough to break something open inside him, enough to signal this wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was systemic. Morning came reluctantly, its thin sunlight barely making it through the dust-clogged blinds of room 118. Daniel had managed only a few restless hours of sleep, his mind constantly circling back to Lena's trembling hands, Gloria's bruised wrist, and the man named Tony, whose threats seemed to echo down every hallway. At 7 a.m., he stepped into the breakfast area, a weary collection of mismatched chairs and rickety tables that looked as tired as the people working here. The continental spread was uninspired. A few pre-packaged muffins, some bruised apples, and a coffee machine that sounded like it was coughing through its final breaths. Behind the counter, a middle-aged woman moved with slow deliberation. Her motions careful, practiced. Her hair was pinned up in a tight bun, and her name tag read Gloria. Her every movement spoke of endurance, like someone surviving pain in silence. "Good morning," Daniel greeted gently. "Morning, sir," she responded without looking up, the words mechanical, stripped of any warmth. "Coffee's fresh?" "Thank you." He took in the room. The quiet, stale silence hung over it. "Slow morning?" he asked casually. "Always is," she murmured. Then, under her breath, "Nobody stays here by choice anymore." She stiffened immediately, as if her own honesty had betrayed her. "I shouldn't have said that." Daniel offered a soft, understanding smile. "No offense taken. Actually, I was hoping to ask you something. I met Lena last night. She seemed troubled." Gloria's posture changed, shoulders drawn tight. "I'm not supposed to discuss other employees with guests." "I get that," he said, his voice calm. "I'm just concerned. She mentioned someone named Marcus." Her hand froze mid-wipe. "You should enjoy your breakfast, sir," she said woodenly. But as she turned to leave, she whispered over her shoulder, "Stairwell. 10 minutes." Daniel gave a slight nod and walked toward a corner table with his coffee. 10 minutes later, true to her word, he found Gloria in the service stairwell. She looked over her shoulder nervously, as if expecting someone to follow her. "You shouldn't get involved," she said, not as a warning, but as a weary truth. "It's not safe." "What's happening here, Gloria?" Daniel asked softly. She rubbed her wrist, unconsciously repeating the same motion Lena had made. "It started about a year ago. Marcus became day manager, and suddenly he had a solution for everyone's problems." She let out a bitter laugh. Single moms needing car repairs, staff trying to buy medication for their parents, Marcus always had a guy who could help. No credit check, just sign here. That guy was Tony. But the real boss, Victor Crane. Tony's just the enforcer. "And the interest?" Daniel asked. "Criminal. Some weeks it's 50%. Miss a payment, they show up at your house. Or worse, they call it service reminders." Her fingers traced a faint bruise on her arm, a memory she didn't want to relive. "How many people here are caught up in this?" "At least 8, maybe more now," Gloria said, her voice cracking. "We're trapped, Mr. Black. We can't quit. We need the paychecks to make the minimum payments. We can't report it. Marcus keeps records of the loans and says he'll turn us in for theft, and the cops—" She shook her head. "Victor's got connections. Nothing sticks." Daniel's stomach churned. "Has no one at corporate noticed?" Gloria scoffed, the sound hollow. "We file complaints. They vanish. Marcus handles all communication with HQ." Daniel's thoughts began to spiral. Then one name surfaced. "Does the name Blackwood mean anything to you?" She frowned. "Only that it's the name on our checks. Daniel Blackwood, the CEO. Why?" "Just curious," Daniel said, masking his reaction. "And Marcus? What does he get out of all this?" "Kickbacks. 10% on every loan. Plus, he skims from the registers, blames it on employee theft, keeps everyone too scared to speak. A picture was forming in Daniel's mind, and it was darker than anything he'd imagined. His motel was being used not just as a front for predatory loans, but a laundering hub for something much more insidious. More thing?" he asked as she reached for the stairwell door. "Lena's mother. How bad is her situation?" Gloria's face softened. "Worse than anyone. Her mom needs specialized treatment. Lena took one loan, couldn't pay. Took another to cover the first. Now she's drowning. Tony's been showing up for months. Last week she hesitated. They went to her mother's house, said they were checking on her health, threats disguised as concern. Lena's been working herself to the bone trying to stay afloat." Daniel's chest tightened with fury and helplessness. After Gloria left, he returned to his room and made a call, not to his assistant, but to Ray Dawson, his head of security, a man he trusted. "Ray," he said, lowering his voice, "I need you to run a background check. Marcus Stein, day manager, Starlight Inn, Oakwood location. Also look into a Victor Crane, possible loan shark operation." A knock at the door interrupted the call. Daniel opened it to find Lena, dressed in civilian clothes, her face pale from exhaustion. "Mr. Black," she whispered, "can I talk to you?" He nodded, ushering her in. "I shouldn't be here," she said, her hands wringing. "But after last night, after what you did, I needed to warn you." "Why me?" "They're suspicious. Tony asked Marcus about you this morning. They think you're a cop, or someone from corporate." Daniel exhaled sharply. "They're watching you now. Marcus had housekeeping search your room, looking for signs." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Thank you for the warning." "There's something else," she said, pulling a crumpled sheet from her pocket. "The reason I can't escape. I've already paid them back 3 times. Daniel unfolded the document. Columns marked principal reduction were nearly empty, while service fees and management commission consumed the bulk of every payment. 30%, he muttered. Marcus is pocketing 1/3 of every loan. Lena leaned in. "It's not just him. Someone higher up is involved too. This column, the W Executive Fund. That's what tipped me off." Daniel stared at the initials. BW. His initials, his brand. But he'd never authorized this. Someone in his inner circle was using his name to shield this exploitation. "Has anyone from headquarters visited?" he asked carefully. "Once, about 8 months ago, William Barnes, regional VP. Daniel's breath caught. William Barnes. WBW, not BW. Did he meet with Marcus? They were in the office all day. After that, everything got worse. More pressure, more layoffs, more loans. His phone rang. Ray Dawson. "I should go," Lena said. "My shift starts at 4. Daniel answered. "You're not going to like this," Ray said. "Marcus Stein has a sealed record, fraud and laundering. Charges dropped 3 years ago. And Victor Crane? FBI watch list. Racketeering. But here's where it gets worse. Marcus was hired on recommendation from William Barnes. They were cellmates at Linview Correctional 8 years ago." Daniel's blood turned to ice. "Barnes came highly recommended. I gave him the keys to half the company. There's more," Ray said. "Financial sweep shows 6 of your motels, all under Barnes's hires, are reporting weekly cash deposits just under the legal threshold. Money's being funneled to offshore accounts." Daniel closed his eyes. "They're laundering cash through my properties." "Exactly. Loan sharking fuels the cash. Motels clean it, and employees, they're hostages." Daniel opened his eyes, fire returning to his voice. "I need you here tonight, Ray. Bring everything you've got. And don't tell anyone at HQ. Already en route. I'll be there by 7. As soon as the call with Ray ended, Daniel knew he had to move. He couldn't afford to stay in his room any longer. Marcus was planning to have it searched. He packed his bag quickly and checked out under the pretense of a family emergency, but he didn't leave the area. Instead, he relocated to the coffee shop across the street, positioning himself in a booth with a clear view of the motel entrance. Every muscle in his body was tight with tension, his eyes scanning for movement, his mind running through scenarios. Mid-afternoon, he spotted Marcus arriving. The man's heavy-set figure waddled from a sleek black SUV, his thinning hair slicked back, a watch on his wrist that cost more than his entire monthly paycheck should have allowed. It gleamed too brightly, like a trophy stolen from someone else's victory. Moments later, a housekeeping cart was wheeled toward room 14118, his former room. 20 minutes passed. The housekeeper emerged, looking confused. Marcus followed, talking heatedly into his phone, his agitation unmistakable. Daniel's own phone rang, displaying an unknown number. "Mr. Black." Gloria's whisper came through, nervous and urgent. "Lena told me she warned you." "Good thing you left. Marcus is furious your room was empty." "Thank you for calling," Daniel said. "Is Lena working now?" "She just started her shift. But listen, Victor Crane just showed up. With Tony. They're in the office with Marcus." Daniel's pulse kicked into overdrive. "Do you know what they're discussing?" "I heard Marcus say collection, Kanen. That's what they call it when they—" Gloria stopped. "When they what, Gloria?" Daniel pressed. "When they make an example out of someone who can't pay," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "Last time, Mike from maintenance ended up in the hospital. They said he fell down the stairs." His voice dropped to a steel whisper. "Is Lena on the list?" "She has to be. She's been avoiding Tony all week, and after last night, after you interfered." She didn't have to finish. "Listen carefully," Daniel said. "I have backup coming, but not until 7. Can you get Lena out of there?" Them Lee watched the exits, and she won't leave her post. She needs this job. Daniel checked his watch. 4:30 p.m. Ray wouldn't arrive for another 4 hours. "I'm coming back," he decided. "But I need a way in that won't raise flags." The service entrance behind the dumpsters. Delivery code is 5591. But what can you possibly do? He didn't answer. He was a businessman, not a hero. But this was his staff. His building. His responsibility. Whatever happened here, he had allowed it, through silence, distance, and misplaced trust. He bought 2 discrete recording devices and a prepaid burner phone from a local electronics store. At a copy shop, he printed several key corporate documents from his encrypted cloud drive, proof of his identity and authority. By 6:00 p.m., he was circling the block behind the motel. The back was even more neglected than the front. Overflowing dumpsters, broken skids, a rusted-out door barely hanging on its hinges. He punched in the code, 5591. The lock clicked. He moved swiftly through narrow service corridors, knowing the building's skeleton better than anyone. In the housekeeping storage room, he heard voices, Marcus and another man. "We have a problem," Marcus hissed. "That guest from last night, the one who stepped in with Tony, he checked out early." "You think he's law enforcement?" the other voice said, deeper and colder, and was asking questions. Gloria saw him talking to Lena. Sloppy Marcus, very sloppy. That voice, it had to be Victor Crane. "We can't afford attention, not with the audit coming. Barnes says the books are clean." "Nothing's ever completely clean," Crane snapped. "Find out who he was. Meanwhile, we move up the schedule, clear the accounts. Tonight." "All of them?" Marcus asked. "Start with the receptionist. Make it public. In the lobby. The others will fall in line." Daniel's breath froze in his chest. "What about Barnes?" He's flying in tomorrow. He'll understand. Business is business. As their voices faded, Daniel leaned against the cold wall, his mind spinning. They were planning to make Lena an example tonight, in front of her coworkers, in his motel, under his name. He didn't have time to wait for Ray. He had to act now. He slipped into an empty closet and changed into a stolen housekeeping uniform. He clipped on a fake badge. Miguel. It would buy him a little time. At the motel's security room, he located the video monitoring system. Old, outdated, analog. A hard drive, not cloud-based. Perfect. He began copying files, footage of Marcus and Tony together. Then he planted one of the recording devices, set to activate on sound. His phone buzzed. A text from Ray. Delay. Accident on highway. ETA now, 9:00 p.m. Too late. At 6:30, Daniel headed for Marcus's office. He used the master key he'd taken from the cart. Inside, he found a locked drawer with a false bottom. Inside, pay dirt. A ledger, detailed, brutal. Loan amounts, weekly payments, notations like enforced, and reminder family visit. Daniel photographed every page. Then he found another notebook, tracking commissions, money diverted to something labeled BW Executive Fund. Barnes's fingerprints. All over it. Suddenly, voices approached. He ducked behind the door. "I'm tired of excuses," Tony growled. "We make an example tonight." "The lobby's too public," Marcus replied. "Take her to the storage room by the pool. No cameras." "Fine. 8:00 sharp." Their footsteps faded. Daniel slipped the ledger into his waistband and exited, breath tight. He had enough now to start a fire, but he needed a team. He found Gloria in the pool area, restocking towels. "It's me, Dan Black," he whispered. She gasped. "You shouldn't be here. They're hunting for you. I know about tonight. They're going after Lena. I need your help." "How many employees on tonight who've taken the loans?" She hesitated. 5, including me. Lena. "Round them up. Storage room by the ice machine. 15 minutes. Tell Lena to make a guest complaint from room 237 at 8:00. Doc, something urgent. Something only Marcus can handle." "What are you planning?" "To end this." 17 minutes later, in a cramped, low-lit storage room, Daniel faced 4 stunned employees. "I know about the loans, the threats, all of it," he said, "and I'm going to stop it." "Who are you?" Eduardo from maintenance asked. Daniel held up his corporate badge. "Daniel Blackwood. I own this place." Shock rippled through the group. "Where were you when they broke my fingers?" Michael from the kitchen snapped. "I failed you," Daniel admitted. "But I'm here now, and I need your help." He outlined the plan. Quick, risky, but just enough to expose everything. By the end, their wary expressions began to harden into resolve. "What about Barnes?" Gloria asked. "Even if we stop them, he'll just send more." "Let me worry about him," Daniel said. At 7:55 p.m., Lena stood alone at the front desk, palms sweating, arranging check-in forms to distract herself. The lobby was quiet, save for an elderly couple flipping through brochures. Marcus emerged from his office, eyes cold. "Lena," he said flatly, "I need you to check the pool chlorine levels. Now." "I'm the only one at the desk," she replied. "It'll take a minute. I'll watch the front." She hesitated. She knew. She'd heard the whispers. She knew what the storage room by the pool really meant. Didn't play along. Because tonight the game was about to change. Lena's hand hovered beneath the counter, fingers brushing the small panic button Daniel had shown her just hours ago. She hesitated only a breath before pressing it, the faint click lost beneath the hum of the lobby's flickering lights. "Wait," "Okay," she said, her voice trembling with forced calm as she stepped out from behind the desk. Exactly at 8:00 p.m., the front desk phone rang. Marcus answered it with a snap. "Front desk. This is room 237. There's a leak. Water everywhere." He cursed under his breath, slamming the receiver down. "Guest emergency. I'll handle it," he muttered into his phone. 15-20 minutes max. Then we deal with the girl." He stalked off toward the guest rooms, unaware that every tick of the second hand brought his empire closer to collapse. As soon as Marcus disappeared down the hall, Daniel emerged from the breakfast nook, dressed in his disguise, now with purpose in his stride. He strode to the front desk, accessed the motel's ancient announcement system, and took a deep breath. Meanwhile, Gloria approached Tony and Victor near the office, her voice tight with feigned worry. "She's waiting in the pool's storage room, shaking like a leaf. Doesn't suspect anything." The men exchanged a look of cold satisfaction and followed her, unaware that Eduardo and Michael were already waiting in the shadows just inside the dim room. As soon as the door shut behind them, the trap snapped closed. Eduardo and Michael blocked the exit, their faces hard with resolve. Back at the desk, Daniel flipped the switch. His voice echoed through the motel. "Attention, staff and guests of the Starlight Inn, this is Daniel Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Accommodations. Tonight you're witnessing the dismantling of a criminal network, live and in real time. Every hallway, every room, every employee stopped. The PA system carried his calm, unwavering voice everywhere, even to the hidden recording devices now capturing every word. For over a year, a predatory loan scheme has been operating from within this property, targeting staff, leveraging their struggles, threatening their families. That ends tonight." In the storage room, Tony and Victor spun, eyes wide. "What the hell is this?" Victor barked, reaching for something beneath his coat. "I wouldn't," Eduardo warned, glancing to a freshly installed security camera in the corner, now very much live. At the same moment, Marcus burst back into the lobby, wild-eyed, confused. He froze when he saw Daniel standing at the front desk, holding the microphone like a judge in a courtroom. "We've gathered evidence of every illegal loan, every threat, every assault. That information has already been transmitted to federal authorities." Marcus lunged, teeth bared, but stopped when Lena stepped from the office, holding a leather-bound ledger high. "Looking for this?" she asked, her voice finally. Daniel didn't miss the symbolism. Her hands didn't tremble anymore. Marcus snarled, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I do," Daniel said evenly. "You, Tony, Victor, William Barnes, and the people watching this right now in D.C., Chicago, and our legal department." As if summoned by his words, the front doors slid open. Ray Dawson entered, flanked by 2 FBI agents and windbreakers. Daniel didn't miss a beat. "Agents, you'll find your primary suspects in the storage room by the pool. Documentation is prepared and waiting." Marcus turned to run, but Michael stepped into his path. The two collided hard. Marcus crumpled, his face smacking the polished tile. "My fingers," Michael whispered as he stood over him. Within half an hour, the lobby had transformed into a federal crime scene. Agents collected evidence, employees gave statements, guests watched wide-eyed, some filming, most whispering in disbelief. Agent Rivera approached Daniel, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Blackwood, this is one of the most comprehensive RICO takedowns I've seen built from the inside. How'd you pull this off?" Daniel didn't point to himself. He turned toward the staff now gathered at the front desk. "I had help," he said simply. "They're the brave ones." "And Barnes? Your team in Chicago should have him by now," she confirmed. Daniel's shoulders dropped just slightly, a weight lifting. Later, he found Lena in the breakfast area, sitting alone. Her expression was distant, drained. "It's over," he said as he sat down. "Is it really?" she asked, her voice soft, uncertain. "Billy can't touch you anymore, or your mother." He slid 2 items across the table, a folder containing formal paperwork forgiving all staff-held predatory loans, and an envelope. "This covers your mom's treatments, full care, no more second jobs, no more debt." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? You could have just fired them and walked away." Daniel paused. 8 years ago, I opened my first motel with a promise to myself to create something that respected people, not just profit. Somewhere along the way, I lost that. But you reminded me why it mattered. Lena looked around at the staff, laughing quietly, giving statements, hugging one another. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we rebuild," Daniel said, standing. "This location will close for 1 month, full renovation, paid leave for all staff. After that, retraining and new management structure. A company Washwood emergency fund, so no one ever has to turn to predators again." As dawn broke, Daniel stood in the parking lot, coffee in hand, watching as work crews arrived. Ray joined him. Barnes was caught trying to board a private jet. They found shell accounts in his name. The same scheme at 12 other locations. Daniel didn't respond at first, just stared at the Starlight Inn, his first motel. The one that had given him everything, now scarred but still standing. "I trusted him with lives," he said quietly. "You can't control what others do," Ray replied, "but you can fix what they break." Daniel nodded. "We're keeping this place closed until it's clean, top to bottom. New furniture, new system, same staff. And Lena? She's the new assistant manager." Ray smiled. "From victim to leadership in 1 night. That's poetic." He shared it. 3 months later, Daniel returned for the grand reopening. The name was different now. Horizon Inn. The colors were brighter, the rooms modern, the staff glowing with pride. And at the heart of it all stood Lena, in a sharp blazer, clipboard in hand, directing staff with grace and confidence. "Welcome to Horizon Inn, Mr. Blackwood," she said with a warm smile. "Your room is ready whenever you are." "No undercover this time?" he joked. "No need," she replied, her eyes clear. "Everything's just how it should be." As they walked the lobby, she updated him on changes. Staff assistants had already helped 3 workers avoid financial collapse. Maintenance schedules were fixed, reviews were glowing. "My mother's started gardening again," she added quietly. "Insurance covers her now. She's..." Smiling again. That evening, Daniel sat alone in the new courtyard. The motel felt alive, not just clean, but redeemed. He remembered that night, the hallway, Lena's muffled sob. That single moment had cracked open the lie and let in the truth. Sometimes, he realized, the most important undercover missions don't uncover corruption. They uncover courage. The courage to change, to confront your failings, to fight for those who've been ignored too long, and to build something better, together. From the wreckage, forever changed.